What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode with Brass and Gas. My name's Joe. I'm your host here. Today's going to be a little bit different from my other videos. We're not going to be talking about 2011s. We're not going to be talking about Live Free Armory. Today, we're going to be talking about NFA items, more specifically cans today. The reason for that is, in case you're not aware, recently the ATF has gone on a approval spree and has been looking to approve cans a lot quicker than they used to. A lot of people have been speculating it's just so that way they can get the most money out of us. It's so they can get these approvals in, so they can get more people registered, get more people on their list and stuff like that. And I'm gonna go through and I'm kind of debunk some of that, and then I'll also maybe touch in a little bit on each of these suppressors and why I might think it's a good idea to get one, at least while the waiting is really short. So for reference, this was one of the first cans I got, and this is a Dead Air Sandman S. It is a 30 cal can. It has a quick detach mounting system known as Chemo, and this one actually took about 4 to 5 months for me. Not too bad compared to a lot of other people. A lot of other people tend to wait 6, 7, 8 months, even some people going as far as over a year waiting for their stuff. And that's just if they file as an individual. If they filed as a trust, then that process tends to take a little bit longer. And, you know, there's a bunch of other factors that may play into that. But that's the general gist of it. Meanwhile, as of late, we see cans getting approved as quickly as days, if not hours. I think the quickest approval I've heard of is 16 hours, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. And if you've been into NFA items for a long time, maybe even back in 2011, 2012, I mean, wait times are as long as 2 years, which is hard to think of looking at how short waits are now. So for those of you that maybe are not familiar with the NFA process, I spoke a little bit about individual and trust applications. To dive into that a little bit, an individual is basically someone who goes into the store, sees a can like this, says, hey, I want this can, I want to file the tax stamp, let me buy it. They'll go ahead, they'll file the tax stamp as the individual, as the person they are, and then that's it. For someone who files as a trust, the best way I could explain it is that your trust is not an individual. It is an entity. It is a business, for a lack of better words. Just as a heads up, I'm not a lawyer, not an advisor, nothing of the sort. Just trying to help you guys understand it a little bit better. But basically, you're an entity. And as an entity, it's a little bit more complicated than just doing a background check on a single person. So that's technically why it tends to take a little bit longer than an individual submitting their application. But moving past that, if you are new to NFA items, if you've been looking into possibly getting into it because of these short wait times, or because your buddies are all getting it due to the short wait times, let me kind of break down that process a little bit more for you, so that way you can feel a little bit more comfortable and maybe a little bit more at ease when you go into a shop looking for a can. So when you go in to get a can, the first thing I would hope is that you did a little bit of research at home, maybe thought about what you would want to mount your can onto. Maybe you have an idea of what kind of calibers you want to shoot out of it, things of that nature. It doesn't have to be nothing crazy, just a general idea. As long as you go to a gun shop that you trust and that you know the people and you believe what they tell you, or not believe what they tell you, but you trust in what they advise you for you. They'll be able to guide you in the right direction of what works best for you, just like they did me. So diving into it, you walk into the store, you look at their different cans that they have to show, and you pick one out. Now, as long as everyone's done their part, that should be a can that's going to work for you and whatever gun you want to shoot it on. Now, when you go to then pay for it, you're going to be paying for the can, and then you're also going to pay what's called a tax stamp. That tax stamp is going to be $200. It's not a fee that the gun shop can waive. It is nothing that's in their control. That is a federal tax stamp. That is something that the ATF requires you pay in order to submit any tax stamp, whether it be a Form 1, a Form 4, for suppressors, for machine guns, for SBRs. It doesn't matter. No matter what, you're going to have to pay the $200. So don't give your gun shop a hard time about it. It's just part of it. Once you go ahead and you pay for it, you're going to go ahead and also get your fingerprints taken and a passport photo taken of you. And so the reason for that is that the FBI, the ATF, they need to be able to identify who you are. And sometimes just using a name isn't enough. Sometimes using a birthday is not enough. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to run your fingerprints, and they're going to cross-reference that with a picture. So if you're in the system, they're going to have both of those already, and they'll easily be able to distinguish those who are lawful owners and those who would not be lawful owners. And then they'll go through approving and denying that accordingly. So typically what happens when they do that is your tax stamp is going to be received by the ATF with the $200 from the gun shop, as well as your form. They're going to go ahead, they're going to review the application, and they're going to send off your background information to NICS. So NICS is a system that is controlled by the FBI, and that's where all the background checks are processed and they're cross-referenced, making sure you are going to be a lawful owner. Typically, that is what the longest part of this wait time is. Back before the new updates and everything, which I will get into, it would take months to even get your background information to the FBI and get that background even performed. So that was annoying, but luckily we have the new system, and that new system is that the ATF is taking all of your background, not all of yours, but a batch of different people from different places, different applications, all from that day, and they're sending them all over to the FBI to run the next background check. And typically, if your firearm background check comes back instantly or it comes back very quickly, probably within a few minutes on a non-busy day, your can will probably be approved within a couple days. And I mean, go to NICS from the ATF, come back from NICS from the ATF, get that paperwork processed, get the final approval, get sent to your FFL, and basically you can pick it up. Like I said, I've seen them come back as quick as 16 hours. And that typically is the process. There was an update, I believe, in late January from what the ATF had mentioned, and that's where they came up with this new process, and that's what's been helping to get these forms processed quicker. And a little note I wanted to add, this is straight from the ATF. The ATF receives 24,000 applications a week. 24,000. And about 16 to 17,000 of those are going to be e-form applications. So for those of you that are new to this, an e-form application is essentially an electronic form that is submitted to the ATF. The other 8,000 forms are going to be paper forms. Typically, those are going to be person-to-person transfers. They're going to be trust applications, things of that nature. And I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. Once you get your approval, which you will get in your email, you are actually going to head to your gun store. When you head to the gun store, you are going to hopefully have a copy of it. If not, the shop will print it out for you. And you are going to go ahead and fill out a 4473, just like you would when you purchase a firearm. So if you're a little confused as to why that is, that's essentially telling the the gun shop, that's telling the ATF, if they ever do an audit on the shop, saying that you did confirm that your stamp was approved and you actually picked it up from the gun shop. It's you're not getting another background run. You're not getting anything weird like that going on. It's just a confirmation that you're picking it up. So I mentioned the e-forms when it came to applying for your tax stamp. For those of you that don't know, the e-forms is the electronic version, and that is the preferred method nowadays because it's quicker. It doesn't have to be mailed into the ATF office, and it doesn't have to get processed like that. It's a little bit quicker. It's a little bit nicer. Makes the process go a little bit quicker, and honestly, I'm a fan of it. And to do that, you're going to have to actually create an eForms account. So it's really easy. You'll essentially search up ATF eForms in Google. It's typically the first link. You'll create your account, and when you create your account, you'll get an email with your user ID, and that is something that you're going to need whenever you eForm anything NFA-wise. So for cans, SBRs, machine guns, you will need that user ID when you submit it. More specifically for when you do it in store as opposed to at home, because if it's at home, most likely you'll have it saved on your computer and it'll autofill if you do that. So the other thing you're going to need with that eForm and that user ID is going to be your PIN. That PIN is going to be that second layer of security that it is you who is applying for that can and not someone else with the same name and possibly a similar username. And that's just security for the shop, security for the ATF, and it's security for you to make sure that your can is getting approved. So it's a pretty easy process. It's not too difficult. It's just a little time consuming. That's all. But that is essentially the nut and bolts of not only going to the store to get your can, purchasing your can, filing your can, and eventually picking it up. So I hope that was pretty simple for you guys. If you have any other questions about it, feel free to reply down in the comments. I'm more than happy to help and explain whatever I can to you. Now, going into the different cans I have here, these are a couple of my personal cans. I'm just going to start left to right to kind of explain what they are, why I picked them, and so far and so forth. So starting with this, I mentioned it a little bit before. This is my Dead Air Sandman S. It is a 30 cal can. And when I mention 30 cal, that means it's good for something like 308, 300 Blackout, 6.5 Creedmoor, just anything that is going to be 30, essentially 30 caliber and under. No, it cannot shoot 9mm. No, it cannot shoot 300 Win Mag. I don't think actually it might be able to shoot 300 Win Mag. I can't remember. It's gonna be a good general purpose can for your rifle calibers if you're shooting 223, 5.56, 300 Blackout. Let's see, 7.62 by 39, 7.62 by 51, aka 308. It's gonna be, what else can it shoot? Oh, obviously it can shoot smaller rounds. I mean, you could shoot 22 out of this if you wanted to, although I would not recommend it, and I'll kind of dip into that a little bit later. But I did mention that this had the chemo adapter for quick disconnect, and essentially what chemo is, that's Dead Air's quick detach system, and it essentially allows you to just drop it on there, twist from the top of the can, and lock it in place. This takes hub threads, which is attempting to be the universal mounting system for cans. And specific to this Dead Air Sandman, well, not specific to it, but for the Dead Air Sandman S, they also, or all the Sandmans, they are going to have this front end cap that you can take off, and they have other front end caps for instance, for your 5.56 to help suppress it a little bit better. But this is what I would consider your duty / rifle can. That would be my recommendation for that. And these typically run about $1,000. And then don't forget your $200 tax stamp on top of it, so roughly around $1,200 before taxes. Now, at the time when I was purchasing this was the can that I thought would work best for me, because I have a lot of ARs, I have some bolt guns, and all of these would be really good for this, for a good first can for me. If you have just one AR, or you want to get just a 5.56 dedicated can, or even something that's even more proven, more military contracts, more battle proven, more durable, I would suggest something like a Surefire RC2 or even an RC3. The reason for that is they're going to be a little more durable, but the big thing that you're getting out of it is that point of impact shift. So for those of you that are new to cans, whenever you put a can on your gun, it's going to mess with the harmonics of the barrel. And because of that, you're going to get point of impact shifts once you mount that can on. Now, what Surefire has done that's been really impressive is that when you take the can on and off, you're not going to get that point of impact shift with an RC2 and RC3 with those Surefire cans. Don't ask me how they do it exactly. I just know it's within their quick detach system and how they basically engineered the can to come on and off the gun. But that's the rifle can. That's what I went with. And if you're curious about the RC2 or the RC3, I believe the RC2 comes in at $1,300-ish, and the RC3, which is brand new and a flow-through can, that's going to probably run you closer to $1,800. So going away from the rifle cans now, these four are going to be geared more toward your handguns. Aside from these two could be rifle cans, but for a different reason. But starting with these two, both of these are going to be 22 LR cans. This is an old school Sparrow 22, and then this is a Dead Air Mask HD. Now, why do I have two 22 LR cans? Well, I have quite a few 22 handguns. I have a 22 rifle that I like plinking with, and I just kind of got tired of swapping them back and forth. That's essentially the only reason. But the Sparrow here is actually a little bit lighter, a little bit longer, and I think this is really good for your handguns. It deals with first round pop pretty well, but it's just a little bit lighter, so it's not as heavy on the handguns, especially because the 22 handguns are so light already. Now the Mask HD, this is going to be a heavier duty can. This is actually Magnum rated, so you can shoot stuff like 17 HMR out of it, 22 Magnum, you can shoot 5.7 out of this as well, machine gun rated, and just an overall more durable can. I'm a huge fan of it, and this was actually the first 22 can I bought. All right, moving on to these two here. This is going to be an Obsidian 9 can, and this would be geared more toward your handguns and even some of your PCCs if you wanted to. Now, the reason why I chose the Obsidian 9, and it's actually one that I bought before the Mojave came out, and that's because it can break down like such. So basically, this front end cap can come off, it'll thread right into here, and you get a K configuration 9mm can. And then you can very easily thread the top end back on, and you now have a full-length 9mm can, which makes it really good when you're swapping between handgun and PCC and things of that nature. Plus, Rugged has some of the best customer service I've ever heard of. Excuse me. Now, moving on to the Rugged 45 can. This is called the Obsidian 45. So similar to the 9mm can, it does break down a little bit, but not as much as the 9mm can. Still can take that front cap off and put it on here to get your somewhat K configuration. And then you can shoot your 45, you can shoot 10mm, you can shoot 40 cal, you can shoot 9mm out of this, which still suppresses pretty well. And on top of that, you can put this on a variety of handguns, a variety of PCCs, and believe it or not, the Rugged Obsidian 45 is indeed rated for 45-70, as long as it's coming out of a 16.5-inch barrel or longer. So that's another reason why I picked this up as opposed to something like a Alaskan or a Hybrid 46 when it comes to the 45-70. The 9mm can, it can shoot 9mm. I believe you can shoot 357 SIG out of it, 357 Magnum, 38 Special. You can shoot 22, although again, I don't recommend it. And the reason being is that 22 is a very dirty ammo, and it deposits a lot of lead into the can as well as into your gun. Why is that such a bad thing? So the lead can erode your can, especially if it's not serviceable like the 30 cal can is, like a lot of 9mm cans are, at least some previous models before this year came around. But overall, it's not something I'd really suggest. I'd really suggest getting a 22 can, as they will suppress a lot better, and they're made for it. But overall, if I had to pick 2 cans or 1 can or 3 cans that I was going to buy if I had the money and I just wanted to get the cans and be done with, I would buy 130 cal can, I would buy a 45 cal can, and I would buy a 22 can. And if I had to choose between those 3, because I am more of a handgun shooter and because I enjoy a 45-70, I'm probably going to go with the rugged 45 because I can technically shoot 300 blackout sub out of it. And realistically, 5.56 is not going to be tameable enough to get the kind of suppression like I would 45 or 45-70 or 9mm and things like that. And so I think that would be my number 1 can to choose if I did it all over again. But overall, guys, I know this video is kind of long, but especially with these short wait times, I know there was going to be new people out there to the NFA world, and I just kind of wanted to jump in and kind of explain a couple things, clarify some things to you. And I'm hoping this message gets out to some of you who were nervous about the process, and I hope you got something out of it. Guys, if you like this, go ahead and leave a like down there, leave a couple comments, subscribe. It does help the algorithm, and I'll catch you guys next week with another video. Have a good one. Bye.